I don't see that it's you.
I just pushed to go live, and we are live.
We are live.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome to, I guess we should say, welcome to the new year,
Happy New
2024.
Year.
Happy New
Yes.
Year to everyone. This is our first episode of Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. And we are so happy to be back and to see all of you. We had a tremendous year last year. I have to say, our stats told us that with all of the great speakers that we had on last year, we reached over 100,000 people. And that is much, much more than who we had as followers on Facebook. So we are so appreciative of everyone sharing our lives, sharing the information, even engaging and writing back to Dr. Bryant. So it's been a tremendous journey, and I'm so grateful that you all are with us as we grow. This new year, we are streaming live on Facebook as well as our YouTube channel, and we've just added LinkedIn. So, if you are following Dr. Bryant on LinkedIn, you can definitely see us live there. But I want to give everyone a second, and even the people who are new to us, to get to meet Dr. Nelva Bryant. And if you could introduce yourself to everyone and let us know who you are and why you're so fabulous.
Thank you so much, Greta. You're fabulous too. Actually, though, you know what? I really was thinking to myself, I want to say this. You always introduce me, but you never introduce yourself. You never say much about who you are, because to be honest with you, you're my right hand with everything that I do. The Facebook Lives would not be present. I wouldn't be able to do my Facebook Lives without you, because you're doing all the backward as far as pulling everything together. I might find the person that comes on board, but you're doing all the work there. So I just want you to know, say who you are too. Let's not forget that, and how important you are too when pets fly. So you go first, then I'll go next.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. Well, my name is Greta Russo. I have been doing events, marketing, and PR for a little over 20 years, and I service so many industries. But there was, I think, a good 5 years I really just concentrated on the pet industry and taking care of pet businesses and helping them reach further out to their target audience, as well as really working, I'm sorry, that's my cat in the back trying to steal something, as well as focusing in on rescues and helping them reach more donors. Hold on, my cat's trying, hold on one second, I'll be right back. Come here, little man. Okay. Little man was trying to make off with an envelope. I guess he was trying to get it to the postman outside, but I apologize for that. Yes, that's what I do, and I'm so happy to help Dr. Bryant and When Pets Fly. It's been a great journey for me to watch you grow. I love animals. I have a passion for all animals and their safety and well-being. And, I just believe that the human-animal bond is a precious thing, and that should always be treasured. And I love what Dr. Bryant stands for and what she's doing. She's trying to make pet travel actually just a safer way to go for all animals, no matter how they're going, whether they're in cargo or in cabin, just so that they can have a safe and happy flight as well. And then I think we started touching on even ground transportation and all that kind of good stuff. So we started out with one premise when we wrote this down, and we've just been expanding and expanding, and it's been so much fun. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm just happy that you're part of my team, Greta. I'll just put it that way. I'm very happy with that. But I'm Dr. Bryant, Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian. I'm blessed that I'm just really honored that I'm working in the airline industry. I do work with Delta Airlines. I've been on staff with them since 2018, and just enjoyed the opportunity just being with them. Have learned a lot about animal transportation in general. If we focus on pets, the main thing I've learned about pets is that they're not prepared. pet owners are not familiar what to do. There's just so many things that are lacking to help the pet owner prepare. So you can say that's one of the main things I want to do is provide pet travel education, more pet-centered travel education, because there's a lot of sites or there's a lot of websites that might tell you what to do, but a lot of times, in my opinion, they're not focusing on that pet, like making sure they're healthy. I mean, make sure they're healthy. You know, no one tells you that. You wouldn't want to, if you weren't healthy, if you had a medical condition, you wouldn't be traveling by air. So little things like that, focusing on the pet itself, focusing on getting them prepared for that air travel, being acclimated to that crate, then the appropriate size crates, and it goes on and on basically. But that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm about. And these Facebook Lives there've been opportunities to really share information with other stakeholders in the pet travel industry. So, we've spoken with, gosh, we've had some cool people. Like I said, this past year, and actually since we've been doing it, we've evolved so much, as you're saying. We started out initially thinking it was just gonna be straight pet travel, but Zoom, we jumped into zoo animal transportation with Rochelle Rogers and everything. And realizing that a lot of the same premises to get a pet prepared, guess what? They got to do it for zoo animals. And think about all the different zoo animal species that they are, and they have to get them prepared. So it's been really a fun thing that we're doing here. So I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely. And, you know, where we initially and naturally thought to start in one area and then focus on the pet parents, but then, you know, as you mentioned, there's so many other people that we need that are our audience as well. Mm-hmm. So it's even veterinarians. It's also pet transporters as well, the different companies, because if you think about it, we only know maybe what was passed down archaically. So nobody knows the updated versions or what should be done now. And with you being the only veterinarian in the United States that works for an airlines, that's crucial because you're on the inside and able to update and make changes from the viewpoint of making the new policies, the new procedures, so that they're animal centric, so that they're safe, and so that there are less casualties, so to speak, and so that it's less hectic for the people handling them. So it's such a, you know, and I think the shift is primarily going from thinking of the animals of just as a property, you know, that you can just throw around in the back of a truck or in the bottom of a plane, and now they're actual living beings, and what are the extra steps we should put in place?
Right.
So,
and I'm sure pet owners see them as living. I'm sure pet owners see their pets, as, of course, as living beings, that they have that human-animal bond. But when it comes to travel, to me, it seems like a lot of things they just forget. Something basic is proper ventilation, proper size for the crate. You know, they will shove their pets in a big dog in a small crate. The crate that they basically house trained him in and figured was sitting in the closet somewhere. They pull it out. Yeah, it's a little small, but he can fit in there, and the dog can't move and turn around. Well, you can't do that. That's against Animal Welfare Act regulations. So there's things it's like, wow, but you care about your pet, right? But you're just not putting it all together. So I love that we're doing this, the opportunity to share information. A great spot, like I said, if information, questions, go to our website, www.winpets.com. And there's a lot of valuable information that both Greta and I have worked on to develop this page. So please go take a look.
Absolutely. Also follow the social medias, the Facebook, as well as Instagram, which is both of them are When Pets Fly. And then let's see, your LinkedIn. How can people find you on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, it's under my name, Nelva Bryant. I guess it's DBM MPH. It's under my name, so you can find me there. And I kind of connected When Pets Fly with it and everything. Haven't made an official page yet. I need to do that.
Okay.
That's the best way to contact me by email. That way, that would be great. Thank you for that.
Yes,
so for today,
absolutely.
I'm just getting
Mhm.
back, actually, before you start, I'm just getting back from Palm Beach, Florida I'm on the governing board for American Humane, and with Robin Ganzert, our CEO, wonderful woman. We had a great event, board meeting and cocktail party. They have a good time. So came back in, I just morning, 10 o'clock this morning, arrived in, and you could say I'm probably on little fumes right now because I'm a little bit tired, but we're going to have a great show today.
Yes,
Um,
we are.
I'm very excited to have our new person coming in today because um, I love IPATA. I love going to their meetings. IPATA is the International Pet and Animal Transportation Association. Um, we attend meetings for this. Basically, it's all the pet shipping companies are part of this primarily, and they're very familiar with the regulations for pet transport. I want to highlight them before we jump into her because a lot of individuals that are traveling with their pets internationally, a lot of times they figure, oh, they'll do it themselves. They're not going to pay someone to assist them in the process. But trust me, if you get an IPATA shipper, they'll take care of all the worries of meeting regulatory requirements, documentation requirements. They'll make sure everything's in order for you. So I highly recommend spending that extra money for them because worst case scenario, you get to your destination, missing documents, you'll be coming right back to the United States. Or if your containers don't meet the requirements, it's just a big hassle. So please look into, if you're traveling definitely internationally, get an IPATA shipper.
Absolutely. So let's bring our guest for our very first episode in 2024. Let's see. Here she is. Everyone, I'd like to welcome you. Well, I should say, I would like to introduce you to Rebecca Henney. Rebecca Henney she owns actually two companies, I'd like to just point out, and both of them are in shipping. Rebecca Henney is a IPATA mentor and LAR certified, and she's the owner of Doggone Taxi as well as Airborne Animals. If everyone can help me welcome Rebecca Henney. Yay! And now, everyone who's been following us, you should know we promised we'd have a clapper by now. We had one, but couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, so, I had it for a good 6 months, couldn't figure it out. I mailed it to her. She can't figure it out either. So Rebecca's going to help us with finding an app or something to assist with that.
My 10-year-old will.
But thanks, Rebecca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Rebecca. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here to represent as a representative of IPATA. And you can just share a lot of information that you did. And like I mentioned prior to you coming on, I think it's very important for people that are traveling internationally with a pet or any other animal. I mean, or it could be a pet bird, but any other animal in general. I would imagine if a zoo came to you, you would be able to assist with transporting a zoo animal internationally, correct?
Yes, we have done that.
Yep. So either way, traveling internationally with a live animal, get with Rebecca or any other IPATA shipper because they'll definitely save you time, money, and frustration in regards to it because you want to get it done correctly. So, yeah.
Well, let me read her introduction, and then we will have Miss Rebecca talk to us a little bit more. So, Rebecca Hennis, I'm sorry. Well, how do you say this? Hennis?
Henny.
Who?
Henny.
Oh, Henny. So I said it right first.
Penny.
Okay.
Like a penny.
Henny.
Rebecca Henney is an IPATA member with Doggone Taxi since 2011 and Airborne Animals since 2009. She acquired Airborne Animals in December 2022, which specializes in birds and exotic pets. She was trained and mentored by Sally Smith, who had won 2 Lifetime Awards from IPATA. Rebecca is now an IPATA mentor who trains other new pet shippers how to follow best practices in pet shipping. She is also certified in live animals through IATA. She was the 3rd person in the USA to get the BOAS certification for shipping snub-nosed pets. She runs Doggone Taxi and Airborne from her home office in Woodinville, Washington, near Seattle. Everyone, please help us welcome Miss Rebecca. Yay! So the first question I have is, what is a BOAS certification?
BOAS is the newest certification available for IPATA members. That is the brachiocephalic obstruction airway syndrome specialty. So what we're doing is, what the IPATA organization is trying to do is work with specifically vets and airlines to get them understand of the snub-nosed pets, which ones are actually more at risk for the BOAS syndrome, okay, and which ones are not. So part of what this does is it takes all the pets, any pet that you're shipping that's classified by the airline as a snub nose, actually no, by IPATA, shorter list, because some airlines have a really long list, some have a smaller list. IPATA has an even smaller list there. We're talking about primarily bulldogs, French bulldogs, English bulldogs, all those kind, pugs, boxers, and saying of those, which ones have the combination of the nose and the palate issue that's causing an issue with the breathing that we really need to focus on and see if they need a surgery to correct that or if they're able to fly. And saying all the other pets that some of these airlines have these huge lists saying, oh, we won't, all these are snub nose, we won't ship them. And one airline has like a chihuahua on there, and and saying, look, we want to prove to them that it is safe. And if they are a snub-nosed pet, there are things that vets can do to test to see if it is a risk for flying, and even a surgery that they can do to correct it before they fly.
Okay.
I think that system is good. In reference to that, there should be some type of certification program for it, but I just don't feel that is. I think I don't think it's going to be adopted as quickly in the U.S. a lot of U.S. air carriers. Is just my thought, because the snub nose or brachycephalic breeds, as far as issues behind them traveling by air, because of their facial conformations, they have a difficulty, everything's smushed together. So they have difficulty breathing normally. They pant and overheat very easily because of their facial conformation. So under stress, they tend to pant, and basically overheat because they're not panting and dissipating heat properly. So and it was found by the DOT, Department of Transportation, that back in, I think it was like maybe 2010 or something like that, they found that a lot of the deaths that were DOT reportable were in these brachycephalic breeds. So based upon that, a lot of the airlines have developed embargoed animals that they embargoed. So a pet embargo or restricted breed, because these breeds are more likely to die during transport, and they don't want a death during transport. Any death during transport does not, is a ding for the airline no matter what, and it's DOT reportable. Now, your international airlines, I've noticed, they're picking up this BOAS certification and everything. They're picking it up faster because they don't have the same reporting system. I don't know what they report to or who they report to, their governmental regulations. But in the U.S., any death is DOT reportable, and that's actually kind of dinged against the airline, and they don't want it.
Yeah. Well, right now, the only airline that is participating in that requires a BOAS certified. Actually, there's two now. There's Emirates and Qantas. And those are the only two airlines that are, as you would say, airline participants in the program, saying that you have to be BOAS certified to do that. But that's not what our main focus we're talking about today.
No. There's a lot we can talk about related to pet travel. So we're going to definitely, I'm going to make sure you get to your area, the things that you want to touch upon. But just, again, there's some things there to just, so folks understand. I think it's a good thing that iPod brought up, but I don't think it's going to be implemented as fast as you might, or as easy in the U.S. based upon a lot of the regulations that we have to comply with. That's all. And I have shared it with the gentleman that Dr. Paul. I have shared that with him before. But please, other questions. I definitely want to know more about you. Okay, tell me. We heard about your background, but again, what brought you to want to come into this sector?
The pet shipping sector.
As far as pet travel?
In terms of pet travel, actually, what I did is I started doing warm water therapy for disabled pets, and people were having difficulty getting disabled pets to do the therapy. And so I started offering pet taxi service, regional, very local pet taxi service, and from there expanded into doing pet taxi service for boarding and daycares. And then I got into the whole, oh, well, can you do an international check-in? Well, what is that? And then learning from there. And then kind of basically they didn't have the setup programs that they have now with IPATA. So you were pretty much feet to the fire and learn as you go. And started, I think, can't remember the year. I think it was around 2011 or so that I started shipping pets, and I joined IPATA in 2013. Went to my first conference there, and then a while back ago, so I'd say like 7-8 years ago, I met Sally and worked with her on shipping birds and handling some bird exports for her, and just started talking to her over the years, and then had the opportunity to work with her and get trained by her and purchase her business so she could retire, since she did this for 20 years. And so now we're shipping the birds and exotics as well.
That's great.
Airborne.
We actually just, Dr. Bryant and I, we just started a little something to do called the Breed Report, which just, does a blog as well as a social media, like quick tips on this breed. And we just did one for birds, and Dr. Bryant does the research into it, and she just could not believe how there was not a lot of really good information out there. So I'm glad to see we have somebody here that we can recommend to people if they're like, oh, who should we talk to get tips about shipping, flying with our birds or shipping birds or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I've added a lot of things to our website at Airborne Animals on birds, the difference of shipping a bird, import versus export, and different countries even goes into a little bit more in depth there. So I'm slowly adding a whole bunch of, trying to make the information more public, just so people understand the undertaking with a bird and how much more difficult it is.
Yeah.
Even domestically, there can be issues like, what was it? It was Illinois or Indiana requires a permit in the United States for a bird. So there can even be, whereas, we're just used to cats or dogs, right? You just drive across the border, right? It's like anything else. Hey, it's part of my family. Some states do require permits. Obviously, Hawaii is a U.S. state, but they have special requirements, and Puerto Rico, has special requirements. So, you can all find this under the APHIS website on pet travel, and look under the domestic section, and you'll find that certain states have, even moving state to state, you may have requirements for birds, and some states do not allow certain species of birds. Which can be super difficult for someone who's got this move planned and they didn't even think to check that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think most people think if they can do whatever they want, they can have whatever animal they want, and they don't think of any of the regulations behind it. You realize people with the African gray parrots, which
well, that's a popular one, yeah,
because those are CITES protected. but somehow they got here. So, they're transporting them. And again, it's not an issue more or less if they're going internationally, but still, they have breeds that are actually, there's regulations behind them, and they have no idea.
Yeah. African Greys are CITES Appendix 1. There's a big difference between CITES Appendix 1 and CITES Appendix 2 pets, and they can look at CITES Plus species database and enter the scientific name and find out what category that pet falls into.
Yeah.
And the paperwork and process for an Appendix 1 is different than the Appendix 2.
Yes.
So that's why the bird shipping has like 15 layers of things that you have to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
CITES protected, basically, I guess you can go down to, and I'm sure you can tell more with Rebecca, but it's more or less CITES protected is these birds are particularly endangered, and there's different levels of, I guess, endangerment or almost going to extinct. So there's more protection, and they put them in separate categories, but there's more protection for the ones that are, you could say, they're about to be extinct. There's going to be more protection for those animals and everything.
Correct.
So permits and everything regarding their transport are extremely important to have. You just can't ship it.
And there are some birds that are not allowed to move based on their protection status. Like, we know that this bird is not bred in captivity and is wild caught. And so once the FWS finds out about it, they want to protect it and they don't want it moved.
Okay, so you guys are saying great things. However, because we get different audiences, I think we have to clarify who you're speaking about and what you're saying. So, for example, I typically represent the pet parent nation. So, I don't know what you're talking about. But if I'm watching this, I'm thinking, okay, as a pet parent, like, I don't know if my pet bird, my parakeet, is an endangered species. So, I guess I want to say is, first, okay, so what are the most common pets that pet parents have? Because somebody might not know they have an endangered species, to be honest with you.
Well, what's really interesting is that the green cheek parakeet, okay, most people think, oh, I've got a parakeet. It's like a lovebird, a pigeon, no big deal. I can fly. It's all good. The green cheek parakeet is in CITES Appendix 2, which means that it requires a WBCA, which is a Wild Bird Conservation Act, also covered under, you follow the same processes with the CITES.
Where can people find out, look to see, check and see what their bird is?
Okay, they go to, it's literally CITES Plus.
Could you spell that?
CITES, not cities, CITES. And all these links are under airborne animals, and we list references to these websites so you can check.
Okay, because what I want to do is create a flyer that we can post and have it go directly back to your website and everything, because we like to share resources like this, because, not to say pet parents are dumb, but, we don't know what we don't know. And so when the guests come on, I like to oh my God, okay, let me grab that and share that, because the more we can educate pet parents, that's even better. But if you're talking about shippers, now that's a whole nother conversation, but you just got to let us pet parents know that this information is for shippers. So that's why
people who have birds, bunnies, snakes, exotics, anything like that. There's a whole realm we can go into in the exotics, but the birds are very much their pets, and they love their birds. Some people travel with their birds on their shoulder everywhere. And they can live, some of the species can live up to 100 years.
Yeah.
So sometimes getting all their documents together, if they want to move overseas, is super challenging, because you have to prove all the chain of custody. How did you get the bird? Can you prove who you got it from? Do you have vet records? Can you write a letter? Did you buy it from a store? Is the store still in business? They really check it out.
Yeah.
And this is, again, for the protection of the species. But you can't just hop on a plane with a bird. The Fish and Wildlife will stop you.
Mhm.
They literally will
Okay.
stop you and say, no,
Oh,
you can't.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm a pet parent and I have my parakeet with me, the first thing I definitely think I should do is go to your website, and then would your website let us know like what is the proper documentation? I guess they need to go to a veterinarian for a checkup. So what is the steps I need to do to prepare to fly with my pet?
Um, it is different per country, just like with
Mhm.
cats and dogs.
Just like the
Okay.
dogs. Mhm.
But let's take, for example, the European Union, okay, which is a simple one. And by the way, only the green cheek parakeet is in CITES Appendix 2. A common parakeet, and I don't have the scientific name memorized by heart, but other types of parakeets are not CITES subject. So you don't have to do that whole apply for the export permit, import permit, so forth. So you just do the other steps. But for most pets, birds going to Europe, let's say you would do the US CITES, you would do, once you get that, you get the overseas import CITES. The very last part you do is go to your vet. But that being said, the bird has to have identification to start with. So whether that be a band, which is much preferred, you can also microchip, you can also tattoo. Um, if you do a band, as long as it's considered a permanent band, that is ideal. I really don't like the idea of microchipping birds because they're so small.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, we had one client who a week before their bird was going to leave the country chewed off their band. The band number that's on all the permits and everything.
So that is, I
The
think you're
vet
talking
had
about rubber
over
ones, right?
the exact same
Actually,
number.
they're normally metal, I believe. Those are like little
Oh,
metal bands. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Birds got like intense beaks, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness
So
gracious.
so yeah, you have to have your CITES export permit, and in the U.S. that is currently taking 4 to 6 months because they are very short staffed and backed up. And then you get the overseas matching import permit for that, which depending on the country can take 2 to 4 weeks. Then you have to get, once you have those two, now you get, depending on what country you're going to, the pet import permit, different
Mhm.
government agent. Um, and then you go to your vet and you have to meet we like all the birds to qualify before they leave, which is much easier. So this can mean doing something like a 30-day home quarantine, which most people prefer. So specifically like on EU, you want the bird to be in your home and you have to prove that there's no other birds in your home and the bird is healthy. And if you do that, then it's an isolated 30-day home quarantine. So the vet can come to the house, do an inspection, make sure there's no other birds and that the bird is healthy, or you bring the bird to the vet and the vet can certify it that way. However, people work with their vet that way. And then the bird does that at home for 30 days. Then the vet, they bring the bird to the vet and the vet does the health certificate inspection and sign off. And then the
Okay.
time for the export is kind of horrible for the European Union. The bird has to leave the country within 48 hours after the vet has signed the health certificate. So it's a mad dash to get that to the USDA, have the USDA endorse it, and get on a flight and pray that there's no embargoes and that the bird can fly on time. And then we also have to have a final Fish and Wildlife inspection of that permit, and the Fish and Wildlife officer physically inspects that bird, checks the microchip or band number, make sure it matches everything on the permit.
Wow, that's a lot.
Very, very, very tedious.
So
Very
is
tedious.
it also that tedious for I'm sorry, what did I have in there? One exotics as well?
Similar process. Yes, pretty much the same. but the timing on health certificates may be different. So like I have 4 bunnies. I love my bunnies. They make a bunch of chewing sounds in the background, but I love my bunnies. Bunnies are considered an exotic pet, so you have to do the Fish and Wildlife filing, but they're not CITES regulated. Okay. Some people may have a snake that is a pet, and most of the snakes would fall into the category of CITES. What else have we seen? Like chinchillas, anything that's not a cat, dog, or ferret. You are required for international moving to notify and file your Fish and Wildlife EDEC prior to departure, at least 48 hours.
That includes lizards and stuff like that.
Yes. Anything that's not a cat, dog, or ferret, freak out, get your paperwork in order.
Wow.
And that need to plan early. Same, like I said, the difference between, question here is there's a difference between shipping birds and regular pets, dogs and cats. It's still tedious. It's still a tedious process, especially if you're going internationally. The requirements are going to vary by country. And it looks like with the birds, a lot of times, depending on the type of bird, you might have to have the additional of the CITES import and export permit and the Fish and Wildlife Services inspections and all that stuff. So it makes it even more tedious. So for folks shipping birds and exotics, that's murder. That's a lot. So that's think in advance and realize also, I always say a lot of pet owners, they come to their veterinarian maybe like a week before or 10 days within travel because they know the airline says you need a health certificate within 10 days of travel, and they think everything should be done then, but they have to realize there's all these steps that has to be done prior to get them ready and everything. Oh, yeah. So I'll just say, as soon as you know you're going to travel with your dog or cat or your bird or any other exotic animal, consult your veterinarian to find out the requirements, or consult with an iPod shipper, someone that's going to assist you with that process, because it is very detailed.
Yeah. And anybody can get, this information, the information on the different steps for birds, other than our website, there's not a place that puts all the different information and all the different agencies you have to coordinate with in one place. But if it's a pet owner, any pet owner that's going to move internationally, they can go to the APHIS pet travel site.
Yes.
The
APHIS website. I know the pet travel website.
Putting that together, telling them what the requirements are, so they can start getting those vaccines in order, their FAVN if needed, their different vaccines, and more importantly, the microchip and the timing on for cats and dogs is what everybody forgets.
Definite. Keep going. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. But I say definitely with everything, it's not a simple process for any animal to be transported internationally. So again, being an exotic or a different type of bird or an animal that's CITES protected makes it just an additional step there and everything. So I'm glad you're sharing that. I want to see if we can move a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the things I found that I'm sure you can help with this whole process on transporting birds. The mistakes I've seen folks do. I'll just put it that way. And this is the reason why Greta and I came together and developed the breed report on birds, because I was saying I've seen people actually have their bird cage that they keep their pet bird in, they shipped it in that. And I was like, I cannot believe. Yeah. No, I've seen it. But you're saying no. Yeah, you're saying no, it's crazy. But yeah, I've seen it. They've done it. It shouldn't have been accepted. It's dangerous for the birds because they do need some confinement. You don't want them to be able to potentially fly against the cage walls or anything like that. But I've seen that. I've also seen more commercial shipment of birds where they put them in a cat carrier. Remember those old time cat carriers of cardboard boxes? Remember those?
Yeah, some people take their pets to the vet in those. Yeah.
Well, they put birds in that and ship it that way, and they'll load it with birds. I always say, forget the stocking density to make sure that they'll be overcrowded. So they're not thinking about ventilation. They're not thinking about the number of animals per container as far as having adequate space for them. They're not thinking about the material. It's cardboard. Is that
Well,
safe?
none of these should be accepted because the airlines are
It should
required to
be.
go by the LAR,
I
and
agree.
if they're not, then
I
they
agree.
get fined by IATA.
I totally see you. I agree. What I would like to do is, and true enough, the airline should not accept anything like that. But a lot of times the airlines are pressured to do so by these shippers because they'll say, I've always done it that way. So I think what we need to do as far as reaching out to these communities, the bird shipping community, and start sharing the right way to do things. Because if they get denied, then they freak out. But a denial needs to happen for them to learn. That's the only thing.
This
For
is
them to
about
understand the
safety in the
requirements.
industry, and no airline should be accepting
Correct.
a pet, regardless what the breed is.
Correct.
I don't care who's screaming and yelling at you.
Correct.
You have to follow the rules. Everybody gets
Correct.
fined along the way. So
I'm with you, but it's not as simple as you might think, because I'll just say there can be stations that I know for Delta, we are definitely strict on saying IATA compliant containers. They have to be in them for that animal species. So it's going to vary by the species.
correct.
We have that. And I can guarantee it on majority of our stations. But if I have a vendor station that sees animals, that accept animals for different airlines that don't have that stringent component, then that's where I have a loophole, unfortunately. So working on it, but you're right. All animals should be accepted in containers that comply with IATA. IATA is the International Air Transport Association. They have the live animals regulations.
Yeah,
It's a
that's the
manual.
LAR that we're
It has
talking
all
about.
of
So
it.
live
Yeah, the
animal
LAR.
regulations.
Right. So that is where you're going to find it all and everything. And they should comply with it. But the problem is in the US, see, you're on it because you know internationally it's a mandatory thing. For domestic
It's also
travel,
mandatory in the United States. I mean,
It-
I've tried to. I've had
it's
people come to me in this cardboard box and try to ship a turtle and been denied, and then they come
Yes.
to us and say, "Oh, I couldn't take my flight because they wouldn't take my turtle."
right.
Like, well, you can't put it in a cardboard box. That's not a compliant, and they got turned away from the airline, which is good job on the airline
Yes.
because
see,
they
people
should
don't
not be
under-
accepting anything.
People don't understand that detail, that it has to comply and you have to be, you haven't, I've seen so many things in a rubber tub. It's like, don't accept it. If it doesn't meet
Well,
requirements, don't
I
accept
mean,
it.
okay, I have to say well on that because if you're talking about a lizard, okay, salamander, lizard, something like that, there are certain types of lizard containers where you're going to have, it looks like a little rubber tub, but it's got the ventilation in it. And then it's got a proper kennel around it and it's strapped down and attached inside of it to make it compliant. So that's like one of those LAR compliance issues.
Yeah. If I say a rubber tub, trust me, it didn't meet requirements for that animal. It didn't. Okay, it didn't. So
I mean, there's like this new kennel I'm finding out about called a Winnebago, not a Winnebago, Winnebago, that is an acrylic bird carrier that you can go. I mean, like a couple different companies sell it, and it's the one thing I don't like is that it's completely clear. So like, oh yeah, the bird's gonna freak out, right? Because it can see everything. But they do have a cover that you can put over it. I mean, we suggest putting like a burlap cover so that the airlines and the inspectors can easily open it up and take a look through the flaps and see what's going on. But for the bird, they want to be closed and covered because that makes them calm. But it's non-chewable. It's got the perches in there, and so it's got a lot of the things that I really like.
I love it. I love that you just said that. There's folks that don't realize there's supposed to be perches inside their bird cages, inside their the shipping container for their birds. It's supposed to have a perch. Actually, the hilarious thing to me is that IATA says that for the commercial shipment of birds, the container must have enough perch space for every bird. And I always laugh to myself, do we say everybody jump on a perch at the same time? I mean, how do you know you have ample perch space for every single bird on there? I just think it's crazy to say, yeah, there must be perch space for each bird in there. I'm like, well, how do you know that? They're not all going to jump on that same perch at the same time to tell you, yeah, we all have space. So I
haven't done a ton with the commercial ones.
Yeah.
Most of the shipments we do are pet birds. Okay. I mean, I've got like 60 birds importing in about 10 days on a commercial, but we're not the shipper on that one. So I haven't seen how they're packaging it. That's a different story. But you can look at it and see, and again, we're primarily focusing on pets here. So if it's one or two birds, you can tell these are your birds and there's enough space.
Right.
And you can make a cage. You can have a custom cage made.
Right.
The issue is that's typically going to be done with wood with wire mesh around it. Some people have an issue with their birds in any kind of wood thing because they're birds and they chew, right? So you almost have to line the interior of the entire wood cage with that. And you're talking about perch space. What else do they need, Dr. Bryant? They need tail feather length to be able to turn around because the bird itself is like this tiny and the tail is this long, right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, we've seen some birds with like 24-inch long tail feathers.
Wouldn't it be worse for the blood feather if they break it and they start bleeding during transport or something? To me, that's the worst thing that can happen in that situation when they have the long feathers and not ample space. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank God I've never seen that because we make sure all birds are.
I hate to say it, I've seen it. I've seen it.
On my side, I can say I have to get pictures and measurements of everything and validate that it's correct and current. So I haven't seen the horrible side that you've seen because I'm not going to send anything that doesn't comply.
Right.
I'm going to take that chance. And I don't care if you're a client of mine and you're going to, as you said, pressure someone to take something that's not compliant. I can say, well, go find someone else. I'm not going to ship your pet then. If you're not going to follow the rules. Goodbye.
Right.
I mean, you have to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you're putting my
in
jeopardy.
I go back to
I'm not going to deal with that.
Yeah, no, I go back to the owners in it. Well, it's wonderful they're going through you because they're learning, but unfortunately, I would go into say even commercial bird shippers or somebody shipping one or two birds between a pet shop to whatever between pet shops. They don't know. They don't know the requirements, and there's a lot of information needs to be shared. So definitely need to refer to you in reference to bird transport since you're doing a lot. I never thought about it, but you're totally correct on saying, let's take a picture of the animal. Let's take a picture of the container. Let's make sure it all fits in there properly. Because I've seen it with the feather, they were the correct height for the crate, but their tail, that feathers and the tail, it was like, oh, they're bent. It's like, oh my God, just like, don't ever accept that. So
nobody should have accepted that. Nobody should have accepted that.
It's a difficult world since 2020, since the pandemic. That's all I can say. It's a difficult. Things have changed. Working on it. Working on it.
Well, all I can say is any of the Fish and Wildlife inspectors that I've dealt with, they inspect the birds at export in those travel kennels, and if they see any issue, they will deny you export, and then your bird is not going.
Well, that's good. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask, and I apologize because I was out for a second. I know you guys talked about the birds leaving the country. Are all of the rules and regulations the same if the birds are just going from maybe Atlanta to California?
Well, they still have to have a compliant travel kennel, and they still need a vet health certificate. And we did speak about this briefly at the beginning, because the other thing is you do have to check what species of bird you have, and if there's any special requirement for that particular state. This is under the APHIS pet travel under state-to-state transport, because again, some states do require a permit, and absolutely Hawaii requires 2 permits. And Puerto Rico requires 1 permit. So you have to look and see even state-to-state travel for a bird or exotic can be checked. And there's also, for international, they can look at the IREGs, which is a little bit harder to find, but that's also under the USDA site for more exotic pets. So if we don't find what we're looking for, someone has an exotic pet under the VHICs, then we check the IREGs and see if there's a requirement listed there. And if there's nothing, because some countries list nothing for this particular species or whatever the case may be, then you have to contact, hopefully, and I've had a pet shipper in that country and say, what the heck is a requirement there?
Mhm.
And if there's no IPATA pet shippers in that country, then you just figure out who the government is and email them.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 It just seems so convoluted. Like, and I'm sure it's complicated for a reason, and it's probably for protection. Like there probably was a lot of smuggling. There probably was a lot of illegal transportation and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's the reason, but it seems like it could be more efficient. You know what I mean? And I guess that's why you're here.
One of the reasons I can tell you there's primarily three reasons why birds are so difficult. Okay, one is bred in captivity versus wild caught. Okay, that's one. That's protection of the species. The second is some particular species of birds are a problem for native species. Like, for example, Hawaii has certain birds that are prohibited. There's a big list of these. And that's because they will, if they ever get out wild, they will eat the flora and fauna. And it doesn't matter how many bird owners you have that are like, no, but I'll promise to keep it in my house and it'll never get out, right? They're looking at, well, okay, we've already seen, we've got a problem here with all these promises people made, and now it's devastating the crops. So you see a lot of that with the green cheek parakeet in particular that is not being allowed for countries.
Right. But, to your point, I know in an article where that is the very case in Florida for snakes. There's a certain snake that's not native to Florida, but now it's this. I forget which one it is, but now there's so many in Florida that it's like
invasive species. Yeah.
And it kind of changes the ecosystem when you get a foreign agent or animal that enters the ecosystem and is dominant, and then it takes over.
And what's funny enough, even though Florida has all these problems, they are doing absolutely nothing to protect their state in terms of, if you look at the APHIS, on regulating any type of species that comes into their state. So that's on them. But what happens is a lot of times people will get a snake and it's super cute and they love the snake. And then they somehow get some other snake and snakes breed insane. And now they've got 100 and they're like, whoa, or it got too big. And, or more often than not, they get one snake. Oh, it got way bigger than I thought. And they just take it to the local lake and dump it.
Yeah.
And then it breeds and snakes breed more than rabbits. Okay. They're crazy.
I had rabbits growing up, so I know that's fast. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got rabbits. Trust me. I know that. So, then all of a sudden you have this huge problem. You've got like 100 snakes in a lake, and they started out this small, and now they're like 10 feet long.
Yeah.
So that's why
the Everglades is taken over by like so many species and of snakes, of people just dumping snakes in there.
Yep. Florida's got a problem.
Wow.
Let's see. Let's get one question in because we're gonna be. Gosh, we're almost done already. Let's get a good question here. What's the biggest challenge you've seen in the petting industry over these past few years? Maybe that one first.
Okay, so primarily, as you know, during COVID, all the airlines stopped shipping, particularly Delta and United, and were the biggest players. And then some of the smaller players stepped up and started taking more pets as cargo. Some of those are putting a lot more restrictions on it. The biggest issue I'm finding is routing pets to South America. Incredibly hard. If you've got a lab, a golden, you might be okay. If you've got a pug, almost nobody's shipping to South America right now for snub-nosed pets. Birds, just about as hard. Most of the airlines are not taking pets to South America. And if they do, they've got to be very small, like no bigger than a 300 or 400 size kennel. For the person, that means no bigger than, say, 36 inches long is what we're seeing a lot with what American says they'll take. It's very difficult and very frustrating. If you're talking to someone who's got a retirement place, they spent years, making these plans to go there, and then you have to tell them, I have no way of getting your pet there because your pet's too big, or maybe I've got to fly it now all the way to Europe and then all the way back, and you got to meet both requirements because there's no other route because airlines aren't doing it. Mm-hmm. And the birds are proving to be very, very difficult to South America. There's just so few airlines that will take them.
Wow. Yeah, I know.
Well, the routing has been, definitely the biggest.
Since the pandemic, it's been a difficult thing for all airlines. Again, coming back, if you think about it, coming back, you've got new people, you have new management, and just different focuses. We realize a lot of time for the airlines, pet travel, I'll just say pet travel is in a sense, almost a low revenue, but it's highly visible. Mm-hmm. And if one thing goes wrong, I don't know how other airlines feel about it, but we flip. We don't want a DOT reportable event. We want to make sure we get the animals to their destination safely and everything's fine. So it's a major issue for us. We don't want that to happen. Something happens, then you've got, research and investigate so it doesn't happen again. So we put things in order to prevent things and stuff. I don't know how the other airlines go, but again, it's not something that's taken lightly. The brand is important to protect the brand. So in a lot of ways, that might be what's going on. Others could be, again, you've got different leadership and different priorities. During the pandemic, the priority was pharmaceuticals, getting those pharmaceuticals, the COVIDs and everything. And some airlines have done good as far as cargo, done very well with that. And they basically decided that, that's more revenue and we're going to move away from the other right now. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not coming back, but it's not a priority right now to some and everything. Yeah.
And Dr. Bryant, the other big thing, not looking back, but looking forward that we're seeing is the reality of weather.
Of what? I'm sorry.
Weather.
Yeah.
That there are dealing with live animals. When they're in the aircraft, the container section of the plane has to be specially built to house live animals, plants, and other things that need to be kept alive that have to have the same air pressure and temperature as the passenger cabin, which not all aircraft do.
Yep. Love it.
But the time they're transported from the aircraft to the cargo office or the terminal, they have to be kept in climate controlled conditions during that time. Right. And what we're seeing is a lot more extremes on the weather, which is so in winter, it's too cold for some. In summer, it's too hot. So we're seeing having to tell people to change when they want their pet to move to deal with the reality of the situation. Like in Atlanta, you cannot ship in the summer. It is too hot.
Yeah, right. I agree.
So you need to go, we want to move you to think about moving in the fall or the spring.
Right.
Ideally.
Yeah, it becomes almost like a seasonal embargo, almost in a sense, based upon the weather, because and we don't have a seasonal embargo, but like I said, it appears to be like one because, again, if the temperature is over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
So in Atlanta, summertime, it's to be expected to be over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, especially hit August, it's going to be hot. Yeah. So forget it. So it seems like it would be more certain times of the year where it's more feasible for them to travel and everything. And it doesn't probably fit with a lot of your people that want to ship, especially for your military pets or foreign service officer pets and everything. So I definitely agree that makes it a challenge, but that's nothing we can do about it. That's an animal.
Well, there is. The only thing that we can do
Yeah.
It's plan.
What's your suggestion? Huh? Say it again.
Me? Oh, I said the thing we can do
Yeah.
is plan. Change our planning and thinking to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this from this location at this time because of what the weather appears to be. So
Right.
I need to think about boarding and planning, and then I'll have to wait for my pet or ship my
Yeah.
pet ahead of time.
It's definitely careful planning in reference to it because it's just there has to be flexibility around it. Is the main thing because there's no way if you're coming from Atlanta and really to be honest with you, anywhere in the South this during summertime, we're gonna be over 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Even crazy, I'm blown away with Salt Lake City. It's hot out there during the
Oh,
summertime.
and Denver gets hot in the summer too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all depends. Yeah.
What we're seeing is a lot more. What we're having to ship on is freighters that depart at midnight, 2 a.m.
Okay.
And even, but like Texas, forget it.
Oh,
too hot. So even at that, you still have to be within that temperature range, which is typically going to be about 35 to say 85 for most pets. And if it's lower than that, if it goes under, I believe it's under 45, then several airlines ask for. So if you're in that like 32 to 45, you have to get a statement of acclimation on the health certificate from a vet.
Right. Your veterinarian has to determine the lowest range for that pet to travel. Say if they say it's 40 and the temperature is 35, they're not going. So
and again, it's just reminding the pet owner that that's only from the time that you're checked in the pet in the warehouse to the time it boards the plane, right? That's why we have that temperature control. Once it's on the plane, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's getting the same air pressure and temperature as a passenger cabin. So
right.
Unless airlines figure out how to connect that piece and keep the pet in a controlled temperature, climate controlled environment from the time they're checked in till they're lifted onto the plane, then maybe there's a potential for some flexibility with that.
Okay. Well, this conversation, I'm telling you, I can't believe we've been on here over an hour, but we had so much fun. I told you, Rebecca, it was going to go just like that.
Awesome.
Is there any last tips or words you want to share with the audience about shipping with birds or exotics?
A lot of the information I've put on the website at Airborne Animals, and they can go there. They can look at some of the blogs. They can look at some of the pages that we've added on. And I'm trying to make all this information more accessible to the public so people really understand all the different steps there are involved with it.
Yeah, well, that's great. I certainly will make sure I post something to point people to your website to get all this great information because you are definitely in a niche with a lot of people who need the information. So we'll make sure we share you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, glad you came and shared the information with us today. We definitely have you back probably next year or something to learn more about birds, because again, it's something that we just need to continue that conversation and make it where it's common knowledge that, hey, if I'm transporting a bird, it's going internationally, there's specific requirements and everything. But as Greta said, we'll make sure the information is on a flyer and linked to you since that's your specialty area and everything and move forward. But thank you for sharing, Rebecca.
Thank you.
I just want to say very quickly, I don't know if there's something later in the year that you will want to share, but if you do want to come back before next year, we would love to have you again.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Chat.
Absolutely. Well, you take care. And I thank everybody for joining us on our first Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant in 2024. Dr. Bryant, would you like to say anything before we sign off?
Nothing further. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Rebecca.
And this is your first LinkedIn Live too, right?
I know.
Yes.
I got a few comments from folks on LinkedIn, which is awesome. So let's just keep this growing. Very excited to kind of expand, like I said, into more of the professional sector out of Facebook. So I think this is awesome. This is a great opportunity for you too, Rebecca. So thank you for sharing your information.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
take care,
Hold on.
everyone.
We're going to take care, but hold on, Rebecca. All right. Bye-bye. You click it.
I pushed the button. I'm waiting for it to end.